AOSD Chandler. AOSD. Watch me bring it out.
Assembly of Sound Doctrine.
AOSD. Watch me bring it out.
You know the script. You know the script. So what they saying? You brought her with you. Now you're playing. Ain't playing with your playing scriptures. Watch them land. I'm powering up with higher gods like Super Saiyan. I can do it solo. Kill a whole doctrine with three quotes. From the Christians to the Hebrews. They're all lost like Nemo. And they give them a shot like a free throw. Break it all down like a peephole. Take some notes from the lesson, gain and knowledge. Get the rest of the spirit in the kingdom. That's a keyhole. Oh no, I know it's been fulfilled and all know. The kingdom is here, I'm hyped, so underneath we might know. Come learn with me, this new covenant living. The kingdom within, loving all of God's children. Watch me bring some truth, bring works of good fruits. Hebrew literature, real doctrines like saber tooth. I'm gonna let it loose from the Passover to the Feast of Booths, from the law of Moses, from head to toe to the new creation. Everything is new. AOSD, 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 Assembly of Sound Doctrine.
Sorry, y'all hear the background. Y'all hear it going. All praises to the Most High through Christ. Today, hold on. Let me cut that down a little bit. Today, we're gonna actually do a lecture style, another one, dealing with the battle against the nations that came from the Messiah. So, first thing first, let's get ready to go to the Clubhouse forum. Give me 1 second, please. Work with me. Alrighty. Got my replays on. This is going to be another lecture form. And we're going to go through what some people is going to deem boring. Other people might enjoy it a lot. It depends on your historical take. Do you like historical information or not? If you do like historical information, then I think this is going to be uh, the room for you, the clubhouse for you, and etc. If you don't like historical information, if you think it drags and it's boring, then this might not be for you. But let's see here. I'm asking any and all to sit back, relax, get your coffee, get your popcorn, get all of the things that you need, get your notes, and etc. Because we're finna get ready to blast off with accurate information. So this is the YouTube channel, AOSD-Chandler, Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. Give me 1 second. All right, I got that. Sorry about that. And this is just at the at the at the whim, at the fly. So whoever comes in, come in. But this lesson itself, it needed to be done. So let's get ready to get started. Righty, no more dragging along. We finna start the process. The Most High fighting against the nations, right? And give me 1 sec so I can. I know you guys like. You should have had that more prepared, my brother. This is actually a last minute thing that I decided to do. But I'm gonna cut on my eastward. And I then close everything down. I'm gonna cut on this eastward right there. Now let's show you what we're going to be piggybacking off of. All right, the first thing to understand is the prophecy or the statement, I believe was prophetic in nature, that was given in Genesis 12, chapter 2 and 3. I can start at 1. Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, into a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So we have the demonstration, right? In Genesis 12. Welcome aboard, brother Demetrius. I'm gonna do another one more lecture style because I wanted to get some of this stuff on my YouTube channel as well as the replays so others can look at later on. So how you doing, brother? Yes, sir. I'm doing great. I'm doing well. So we're going to show about Christ fighting against the nations because people want to see, okay, when exactly, if you guys are saying everything has been fulfilled, when exactly did Christ come and fight against the nations? When did that happen? Where is that at? So we're going to actually break down in lecture form what that looked like. So now in Genesis 12:3, we have, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. And we know that that promise at the end was about Christ coming in through the lineage of Abraham. So within his bosom, within his loins, the world would be blessed. Abraham's bosom, I'm talking about the end, the spiritual realm. But in his loins, through his loins, the world will be blessed, which the Messiah came. But the part of Genesis 12:3 is, I will curse him that curseth thee. This wasn't just for Abraham. This was also for the descendants of Abraham. And we find out in the New Testament, the true descendants of Abraham was those that were in Christ and those that had faith. But Abraham actually did have a lineage, as we all know. So that is one. So we're going to couple that with Deuteronomy 30. So once you go to Deuteronomy 30, I'm going to go to 3 through 7. It says, well, I can start at verse number. Might as well go to 1. And it should come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God has driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. And if any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Verse 5. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy forefathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. Verse 6. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Okay, so now we got all of that to get to verse number 7. Verse number 7 is going to be where it all comes in at. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. So now, Genesis 12:3, I will curse them that curse thee. Deuteronomy 30:7. If your heart is in me, I will put all these curses upon thine enemies. So it was a promise that the curses would go upon the enemies once the people acknowledged their God. So once you get to the book of Joel, chapter 3, Zephaniah, you can go to Zechariah. What's happening here? Verse number Joel 3, 1 and 2. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, and I will gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, whom they have scattered among the nations and have parted my lands. So the Lord is pleading with these nations, right? He's fighting against the nations. But notice, the fight was supposed to be the curses that came upon Israel would come upon Israel's enemies. Understand that. These are the enemies of Israel. So not everyone in every nation was an enemy of Israel. Only, this is very important to understand. Only the enemies of Israel. Not every single person in the nation. Not everybody that was an Idumean was Israel's enemies. Not everyone that came from the seed of Japhet was Israel's enemies. We see this in Isaiah 66 when the people from the different nations are actually coexisting with Israel. So not everyone from a different nation is considered an enemy. Only the enemies, the ones that want to do harm to the Israelites. Once again, only the one that wants to do harms to the Israelites, they were the ones to receive the curses. So now, we're finna go in and show you in real time how and what this looked like. Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. Okay. All right, my bad, go ahead. Yeah. So and that is 100% truth in the way that the Lord actually did these judgments. We're going to see not everyone was an enemy, even if the nation was fighting against Israel. Not everyone in that nation that was fighting against Israel was an enemy of Israel. The Lord dealt with people, so the people would be destroyed. The group of people within that nation that hated Israel would be destroyed. Not every single soul, unless the Lord said destroy every single soul. But we're talking about a judgment that came upon people because of their wanting to go against the children of Israel. Pretty much the people who would, quote unquote, the prejudiced people, the racist people, the people that hated them for no cause, that people, not the people who's part of that nationality, but the specific people. And when those people come together in a group, he judges the group. But we're finna actually go through and show how the judgment actually worked, real time. So we're going to start with Antiochus Epiphanes. Antiochus Epiphanes will be the first person that we start with, showing how the Lord dealt with such people that had it out for his chosen. So now we're going to go to War of the Jews. Now I'm going to be doing a lot of back and forth because I got to use my hard copy as well as the PDF. The thing about the PDF is it don't have the numbers on it like the hard copy. So let me, what did I do with that book? I got like 8 books in front of me. And it seems like I still misplaced it. All right, one sec. What did I do with it? All right, hold on. I just had the book when I just did my notes. That's the life of a scholar right there, guys. Or a so-called scholar. I don't know if you want to call me that or not, but still, a whole book that's got 8. Now let me see if I can find it. All right, I'm not gonna. I have no idea what happened to the book. So I got the notes. Oh, found the book right here. All right, so now War of the Jews, Book 1, Section 1. I'm going to go to line 32. So, War of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 1. War of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 1, Section 1, line 32. Okay. And this is how it is read. This is dealing with Antiochus Epiphanes, as you guys that's on Facebook can see right here. So I'm just going to go to the section where it explains what he did. So let's see here. Right here. Let me get my highlighter ready. It says, he also spoiled the temple and put a stop to the constant practice of offering a daily sacrifice of expiation for 3 years and 6 months. So we got Antiochus Epiphanes coming into Jerusalem and putting a stop to the sacrifices for 3 years, 6 months, which is actually what was recorded in the book of Daniel for one of them. So you go to Daniel chapter 8, verses, we're going to go to 10 through 13. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts and the stars to the ground and stamped unto them, showing that the host of heaven, as well as the stars and etc., this is dealing with the sanctuary and the people inside of the sanctuary. So this is all idiomatic language for Israel and their temple. So you gotta catch that to understand how the Bible speaks. Verse 11, yeah, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down to the truth, to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. So this person right here, this little horn and all that did all the war against the saints, against the temple and etc. This is Antiochus Epiphanes. So Daniel 8, 10 through 13. It's about Antiochus Epiphanes. So we got what Antiochus Epiphanes did. He stopped the daily sacrifice. So now we're finna go back into uh, the PDF, and we're gonna read a little bit more about Antiochus Epiphanes. So once we go to Book 1, Chapter 1, Section 2, we're gonna read line 34 through 35. And we're going to find out what Antiochus Epiphanes actually did. So now Antiochus was not satisfied either with his unexpected taking the city or with its pillage or with the great slaughter he had made there. So he went in there, he took the city, he pillaged the city, in other words, robbed it, and then he killed a lot of the Jews within the city, within the temple. So we have an enemy who is a Caesar, or a ruler. I don't know if they actually refer to him as a Caesar or not, but a ruler of, at this time, well, yeah, he wasn't a Caesar because he's a ruler at this time, dealing with those Grecians people. So my bad. So we have a ruler of the Grecians, of the Greeks in here, over the third beast, a ruler. He goes in being this enemy of Israel, being this enemy of those in the southern kingdom. He's been an enemy of God, and etc. So now Antiochus was not satisfied either with his unexpected taking the city or with its pillage or with the great slaughter he had made there, but being overcome with his violent passions and remembering what he had suffered during the siege, he compelled the Jews to dissolve the laws of their country and to keep their infants uncircumcised, and to sacrifice swine's flesh upon the altar, against which they all opposed themselves, and the most approved among them were put to death. So now we can clearly see this is an enemy of God. This is an enemy of the laws of Israel. We can clearly see that. And just for a tidbit, if we want to know what Antiochus Epiphanes' name actually meant, it's right here on the screen. Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth, also called Antiochus Epiphanes the Mad, born 215 BCE, died 164. He's a Seleucid king of the Hellenistic Syrian kingdom who reigned from 175 to 164 BCE. But the point is, his name in Greek means God manifest. His name meant he was the manifestation of God. So he puts himself, he carries the name of God. He carries the title of God. He comes in the temple of God, and he changes the customs and laws of the God of Israel to his own customs and laws, and he puts God's people to death. So, clearly an enemy of God. Clearly an enemy of the southern kingdom. Clearly. So now, we're going to go to antiquity of the Jews now. So in antiquity of the Jews, we're going to go to Book 12, Chapter 9, Section 1. One sec. Indeed, indeed, and I appreciate that, my brother. I got a few things I'm working back and forth with here, and but we're gonna get through this. So we're gonna show you exactly what my brother just said. We finna show it right now. So once you go to Antiquity of the Jews, chapter, sorry, book 12, chapter 9, section 1, we're gonna read lines 355 through 357, and this is what they said right here. Let's get there on here. All right, there we go. Chapter 9. Uh, sorry, chapter 12, book 9. I said it all wrong. Book 12, chapter 9. All right, we getting there. We getting there. Sorry about that, everyone. Book 12, chapter 9, section 1, lines 355 through 357. And this is what is stated here. Let me find it. And being excited, and being right here, and being incited by these motives, he went in haste to Elamias, these Greek names, man, Elamias, and assaulted it and besieged it. But at those that were in it were not terrified at his assault, nor at his siege, but opposed him very courageously. He was beaten off his hopes, for they drove him away from the city and went out and pursued after him, insomuch that he fled away as far as Babylon and lost a great many of his army. All right, let me see where I'm going to go down to. We're going down to 357, so that stops right at. All right, and when he was grieving for this disappointment, some persons told him of the defeat of his commanders, whom he had left behind him to fight against Judea, and what strength the Jews had already gotten. When this concern about those affairs was added to the former, he was confounded, and by the anxiety he was fell into a distemper, which, as it lasted a great while, and as his pains increased upon him, so at length perceived he should die in a little time. So he called his friends to him and told them that his distemper was severe upon him, and confessed withal that this calamity was sent upon him for the miseries he had brought upon the Jewish nation, while he plundered their temple and contempted their God. And when he had said this, he gave up the ghost. So, can we not plainly see how Antiochus Epiphanes, God manifest himself when he tried to war against the Jews as during his further ruling over Judea and etc. When he's trying to war against the Jews, his commanders start losing, being defeated by Judas Maccabeus. I think that's who it is. We're going to see in just a second, just to make sure. But his generals start being defeated, and that caused him to become in a distemper, which created a calamity inside him, and it created a pain inside of him, and it was like anxiety, and it was painful, and he realized that this feeling that he was going through, which equated to death coming upon him, was the result of what he did to the Jewish nation or the southern kingdom, what he did to their temple, and how he tried to magnify himself above their God. So, giving the effect of the cause of what Antiochus Epiphanes did, can we not draw the conclusion that God, because at this time, this is before Christ was on the scene, that the word was sent to fight against Antiochus Epiphanes and his army, causing his army to lose the war against Judea at that time, and in fact bringing death upon Antiochus? Can we not draw that conclusion and say, okay, the curses of Deuteronomy felt upon them at that time for their decisions they had against Jerusalem? So was all of the Grecian people defeated? No. Was all of the Grecian people part of the war? No. But the people that was part of the war, they were judged and defeated, and their leader, whom they called their God, his name means God manifest, was also defeated in front of them, closing the chapter of the Lord defeating the nations that comes against Israel. All right, so now we can also read in chapter 9, book 2. Let's see if it's worth reading there. Let's see, 360 through 361. Is it worth reading? Well, no, not really. If you can continue reading on, you can see that this is the same thing that was brought up in the book of Maccabees. First Maccabees 6, 7 through 13, just in case for my reference people or my Bible scholars, if you want to connect Antiquity of the Jews, book 12, chapter 9, section 1 and 2, it's found in First Maccabees, chapter 6, line 7, verses 7 through 13, where we see, let's see here, I'm going to start at 10. Wherefore he called for all his friends and said unto them, the sleep is gone from mine eyes, and my heart faileth for very care. And I thought with myself, into what tribulation am I come, and how great a flood of misery is it, wherein now I am. For I was bountiful and beloved in my power, but now I remember the evils that I did at Jerusalem, and that I took all the vessels of gold and silver that were therein, and sent to destroy the inhabitants of Judea without a cause. I perceive, therefore, that for this cause these troubles are come upon me, and behold, I perish through great grief in a strange land. Okay, so we got it right there. Antiochus Epiphanes, he was a big man at first, defeated. Came against God, came against God's people, those Israelites that was in Jerusalem, the one that was fighting to keep the law, not the ones that wasn't fighting against to keep the law, but the ones that was fighting to keep the law. When Antiochus Epiphanes came against those that was doing the things required of the law, he and whomever he sent faced a judgment. Okay, so we're good with that one. Let's look at another instance. We got another guy. His name is Chaos. Chaos. It's Caius. Chaos. So we're gonna go to Antiquity of the Jews. Now we're gonna find this in Book 18. So Antiquity of the Jews, Book 18. So we're going to go to Book 18. We're going to go to Chapter 6, Section 10. Section 10. Alrighty. It's going to be line 224. So let me find it in my hard copy. And for everyone that has a hard copy, Antiquity of the Jews, this is going to be page 589. And this is line 224. This is what it states. So we're going to find out about this guy right here. Caius. So when Tiberius had at this time appointed Caius to be his successor, he outlived but a few days and then died after he had held the government 22 years, 5 months, and 3 days. Now Caius is the fourth emperor. But when the Romans understood that Tiberius was dead, they rejoiced at the good news, but had not courage to believe it. Not because they were unwilling it should be true, for they would have given a huge sum of money that it might be so, but because they were afraid that if they had showed their joy when the news proved false, their joy should be openly known, and that they should be accused for it and be thereby undone. Okay, so we got him being introduced. So let's go to 18. We're going to go to chapter 8 now. So let's go to chapter 8. And we're going to read, we're going to start at section 1. Lines 257 through 258. We're going to find out what he did. So chapter 8 right here, section 1, 257 through 258. It says, there now was a tumult. Let me make sure right there. Yep, there was a tumult arisen at Alexandria. If anybody don't know what that is, that's Alexandria, Egypt. Alexandria, located in Egypt, had the biggest library at the time. Supposedly, this is where the idea to start the Septuagint began at, the Greek version of the Torah, and then eventually the Tanakh. Also, this is where my buddy Philo comes from. And we're going to see a little something about Philo for the people who don't take him serious or say that we should not listen to Philo. He had philosophy from Plato or all that other stuff that people want to add to Philo. So now, let's read. It says, also, origin came from Alexandria, Egypt. A lot of the Gnostic texts came from Alexandria, Egypt. A lot of the non-canonical versions of the Israelite work came from Alexandria, Egypt, and surrounding places. So this place right here was known for their understanding, their enlightenment, their knowledge. So now, there was now a tumult arisen at Alexandria between the Jewish inhabitants and the Greeks. For the people who want the Jews to be the Greeks, you're kind of trying to make it be like there was a tumult against Jews and Jews. I'm glad history actually tells us how to rectify this situation. And 3 ambassadors was chosen out of each party that were at variance, who came to chaos. Now, one of these ambassadors from the people of Alexandria was Apion, and then Josephus actually has something against Apion in his book, Josephus against Apion, who uttered many blasphemies against the Jews. And among other things, he said, he charged them with neglecting the honors that belonged to Caesar. For that while all who were subject to the Roman Empire built altars and temples to Chaos, and in other regards universally received him as they received the gods. These Jews alone thought it a dishonorable thing for them to erect statues in honor of him, as well as to swear by his name. So now we see what the problem is with this emperor, right? So now he didn't came. This is after Antiochus, but so now he didn't came on the scene, and he wants emperor worship. He wants statues built of him. He wants the people in the territories that he's over to worship him like a god, to pay homage to him like a god. The Greeks had no problem with this because they was pagan. They were not the southern kingdom. They was not the southern kingdom in a Gentile mindset or none of that stuff. No, these was actual Greeks from Japhet descended, from Javan. These are those type of Greeks right there, and they had no problem erecting statues and worshiping them. So the Jews had a problem with it. And let's keep reading. Many of these severe things were said by Apion, by which he hoped to provoke chaos to anger at the Jews, as he was likely to be. But Philo, so we got Philo introduced right here, the principle of the Jewish embassage, or I'm pretty sure that would be embassy right now in our language, a man eminent on all accounts, brother to Alexander the Alabarch. Here's a note about Alexander the Alabarch I have in my Josephus book, or governor of the Jews. So this Alexander guy was a governor of the Jews. Philo was his brother. Also, and brother to Philo is supposed by Bishop Person in outside source, ACT Apostle page 42, 41 through 42, to be the same with that Alexander who is mentioned by St. Luke as of the kindred of the high priest in Acts 4 and 6. So supposedly Philo, and I thought he was actually the brother of the high priest, so I take it back. It said he is kindred of the high priest. So he's kin to the high priest. I don't think he's the brother. Let's go to Acts 4 and 6 just to look it up. Acts 4, chapter 6. And Ananias the high priest and Capus, Cepheus, or whatever his name is, and John and Alexander, and as many as were of the kindred of the high priest, were gathered together at Jerusalem. So supposedly this is the same guy that was at Jerusalem. He was a governor and he was a kin to the high priest, by default making Philo's brother the governor in Judea and kindred of the high priest in Judea, which meant that Philo probably knew what he was talking about, since he would have had access to some of this governing things, like the scrolls and etc. So I would say that maybe he knew what he was talking about, being part of a family that was prestiged. So, I mean, that's just me drawing my own conclusion, but I think it's a conclusion that can be made. But anyway, let's keep reading about Philo. And not one unskillful in philosophy was ready to betake himself to make his defense against those accusations. But Chaos, Caius, prohibited him and bid him begone. He was also in such a rage that it openly appeared he was about to do them some very great mischief. So Philo, being thus affronted, went out and said to those Jews that were about him that they should be on good courage, so that they should be of good courage, since Chaos's words indeed showed anger at them, but in reality had already set God against himself. So Philo was saying, hey, let's go back and leave this guy's crazy. God is going to handle him. God is going to fight against him himself. We ain't got nothing to worry about. So now we see the problem started with this guy wanted emperor worship. He wanted to be worshiped. The Jews of Alexandria was like, we're not doing that. We have our own laws and customs. So the guy gets mad at them, right? So now we're going to read from chapter 8, section 2, line 261, just the first right here. All right. Hereupon Caius, taking it very uh, heinously, heinously, that he should be thus despised by the Jews alone, sent Petronius to be president of Syria, a successor in the government to Vetulilius, and gather him order to make an invasion into Judea with a great body of troops. And if they would admit of his statue willingly, to erect it in the temple of God. But if they were obstinate, to conquer them by war and then to do it. So now we have another setting. You see how this is set up? So you have, and this is how it was going on. You had Philo, who was an Alexandrian Jew. He was speaking for the Jews in Judea. So Philo in Egypt took it upon himself as a representative of the Jews in the land of Canaan. So obviously Philo's works has to be on part with the understanding of the Jews in the land of Canaan, because why else would he represent them? And no one have a problem with this guy who don't know what he's talking about representing them. We don't see that no one had a problem with him representing them. So I would say Philo probably knew what he was talking about, and they knew that Philo knew what he was talking about. So now, let's find out. So now he wants to erect an image, a statue, and put it inside the temple of God. And if anyone wants to fight against him, declare war. So now this guy has made himself an enemy of the God of Israel. He has made himself an enemy of the southern kingdom, God's people. So now, what does the Bible say? I will bless those that bless thee, curse those that curse thee. If you turn to me and do my will, I will put the curses upon your enemies. So this guy becomes an enemy of the God of Israel and his sons and daughters. And whoever follows him is the same in suit. Not every single person, just the ones waging war. So now, once we go to book 19, now let's go to book 19. We're going to read section 1. Book 19, section All right, I'm almost there, y'all. We're scrolling. Now we done made it. All right, book 19, section, well, chapter 1, section 1, line 1. So book 19, chapter 1, section 1, line 1. And the hardback is going to be on page 603. So let's read what happened. Now, this Caius did not demonstrate his madness in offering injuries only to the Jews at Jerusalem or to those that dwelt in the neighborhood, but suffered it to extend itself through all the earth and sea, so far as was in subjection to the Romans, and filled it with 10,000 mischiefs, so many indeed in number as no former history relates. But all right, so notice here, this is how using historical information can kind of help you understand the verbiage in the Bible. Here we see that it says through all the earth and sea. So Josephus uses the same type of language that the biblical prophets use. So this was common language. So he said throughout all the earth and sea. But was he talking about the North America, Antarctica, Australia? No, he explains it. So far as was in subjection to the Romans. So anyone in subjection to the Romans, that's what they considered all the earth and sea, all in subjection to Rome, not the entire globe. Okay, so we got that out the way. So, I mean, I'm going to highlight all of this stuff right here. But notice this emperor, he was um he was mad. His madness was what offered injuries to the Jews at Jerusalem and throughout anyone that was in subjection to Rome. He was going through with the madness. So those that was in the neighborhood of Jerusalem and etc. He was mad, right? So we got now clearly he is in fact an enemy to the Jews. So we're going to go to 19:1, section 14. Section 14. All right. All right, 14 right here. And we're going to read lines 113. So let me find it in my hard copy, right? And then let me find it there. All right. Right here. Let me find it. And when. All right, here. And when opportunity served to use his sword in hand, he appeared first of all, ready so to do, and gave the first blow in this virtuous slaughter. He also brought chaos easily into the power of the rest, and almost killed him himself, insomuch that it is but just to ascribe all the rest did to the advice and bravery and labors of the hand of Chirea. So now we're gonna read 114. Thus did in section 15. Thus did chaos come to his end and lay dead by the many wounds which he had been given him. Now Chirea and his associates upon Chaos's slaughter saw that it was impossible for them to save themselves if they should all go the same way, partly on account of the astonishment they were under. For it was no small danger that they had incurred by killing an emperor who was honored and loved by the madness of the people, especially when the soldiers were likely to make a bloody inquiry after his murderers. So we have here that this chaos guy, right, who was an enemy of the God of Israel, who was an enemy of the Jews, who sent people to fight against the Jews, who wanted his statue to be erected in the temple of Jerusalem. We see that now this individual met his end by the hands of conspirators, those that had conspiracies against him, and etc. But he was slaughtered. Now, could we consider this divine punishment? Could we consider this the Lord warring against the enemies of Israel? Can we consider that? Not one. I would say yes. So, that's number 2, right? So we got Antiochus, he's destroyed by a natural occurrence. We got the emperor Chaos, he's destroyed by slaughter of the people who had conspiracies against him for his actions. But could we say these are divine judgments? I would say so. But let's go to a more familiar face, right? Some that another person knows thoroughly. Let's go to Antiquity of the Jews. Let's go to book 15. Let's go a little bit before that. Let's go to book 15. Now you guys are going to know this character, but a lot of people don't know a lot about him. So today we're going to bring out this information about him. All right, what's going on with my? All right, let me close that out. Open it right back up. All right, now hopefully it works. Let's go to book 15. There she goes. Chapter 10, section 5. And let's talk about this character. And we're going to actually get in detail about this character because a lot of people don't know about him. And what I mean is they don't know about his works. So we're going to go to Antiquity of the Jews, book 15, chapter 10, section 5. We're going to read lines 373 through 379 in the hard copy. And this is what it says. Now there was one of these Essenes, whose name was Menahem, who had this testimony, that he not only conducted his life after an excellent manner, but had the foreknowledge of future events given him by God also. So now we got the Essenes, another sect of the Jews, and it was said that this guy was a prophet. He knew future events. He was able to prophesy about future events to show you, even though the Jews had their popular prophets in the Bible, in the nation of the Jews themselves, they had more prophets. Let me say it again. The nation of Jews themselves had more prophets that prophesied that's not mentioned in the Bible. Okay? The Bible itself is about specific stories that give specific meanings. It teaches specific things. But for the nation of the Jews themselves, They had things that expounded going on in real life outside of the book of the Bible or the books of the Bible. So yes, there was more prophets that existed besides the ones named inside the Bible inside of the land of Canaan. So there's a lot more going on that you guys don't know if you don't study the background historical information. So we have an Essene who was a prophet too. So now this is what happened with him. This man once saw Herod when he was a child and going to school. So Herod going to school. I wonder what he was learning. But anyway, let's keep going. And saluted him as king of the Jews. But he, thinking that either he did not know him or that he was in jest, put him in mind that he was but a private man. But Menahem smiled to himself and clapped him on his backside with his hand and said, however that be, thou wilt be king, and wilt begin thy reign happily. So the beginning of his reign will be happy. For God finds thee worthy of it. And do thou remember the blows that Menahem had given thee as being a signal of the change of thy fortune. So you remember how some prophets had to lay on their side and were supposed to eat food made from human dung and all of that stuff, and it represented something? That was something that happened in the land of Judea. They understood this. So we have a prophet who slaps Herod on his backside, and he said, okay, that represented something, Herod. That's a representation of something. It's a change of his fortune. As that little pain kind of sticks out and hit him a little bit, and he can feel that little sting, that represents him leaving from a state of pleasure or okay to a state of pain. It represents a change of his misfortune. And look, and truly, this will be the best reasoning for thee, that thou love justice towards men, and piety towards God, and clemency towards thy citizens. Yet do I know how thy whole conduct will be, that thou wilt not be such a one, for thou wilt excel all men in happiness, and obtain an everlasting reputation, but wilt forget piety and righteousness. That's what Jews actually did. The whole nation of Israel. Actually, people do that today. And these crimes will not be concealed from God. And at the conclusion of thy life, when thou would find that he will be mindful of them and punish time for them. Now at that time, Herod did not at all attend to what Menahem said, as having no hopes of such advancement. But a little afterward, when he was so fortunate to be advanced in the dignity of king, and was in the height of his dominion, he sent for Menahem and asked him how long should he reign. Menahem did not tell him the full length of his reign. Wherefore, upon that silence of his, he asked him further whether he should reign 10 years or not. He replied, yes, 20, nay, 30 years, but did not assign the just determinate limit of his reign. So you see how he said 20, nay, 30 years? See, he didn't make a day to the Lord 1,000 years. You see how those time periods were kind of like an overall. It was an estimate. It wasn't a particular amount of time. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I don't know how I got taken out. But you see how it wasn't a particular amount of time? But anyway, so this is how they use numbers sometimes in the Bible. Herod was satisfied with these replies and gave Menahem his hand and dismissed him. And from that time he continued to honor all the Essenes we have thought it proper to relate these facts to our readers, how strange soever they be, and to declare what have happened among us, because many of these Essenes have, by their excellent virtue, been thought worthy of this knowledge of divine revelations. So it is thought that the Essenes, the group themselves, was virtuous, and they had knowledge of divine revelations with an S, which meant a lot of these Essenes were prophets. They could see in the future. They understood biblical things. So once you go into the Qumran community and you start seeing these books of the Essenes and you start reading these things that seems a little peculiar, understand that we have people thinking that these Essenes and their peculiar writings and the things you be like, no, these guys wilding out. Obviously, whatever they was doing was virtuous enough for the Lord, and He was gave them revelations, allowed them to be prophets to the citizens, even though their accounts did not make the Holy Scriptures. All right, so now let's continue. So we're at Herod now, right? So let's see what old our buddy Herod actually got into. So we're at book 15. Let's go to chapter 7. Let's go to chapter 7. And we're going to go to section 10. Book 15. Chapter 7. Section 10. All right, right there. Now let me find it in my hard copy. Section 10. We're going to read lines 253 and 254. Let me find it right there. So this is going to be 15, chapter 7, section 9, 253 and 254. And then we're going to go into another one. So now, Costobarus was an Idumean by birth and one of a principal dignity among them. So let's see how far we're going. 254 and so right there. Okay. And one of those ancestors, and one of whose ancestors had been priest to Kozi, whom the Idumeans had formerly esteemed as God. But after Hyrcanus had made a change in their political government and had made them receive the Jewish customs and law. So for the people who don't understand, Hyrcanus, I'm gonna say Hyrcanus. I like it. Hyrcanus. He actually changed the Idumeans from being a pagan to worshiping the God of Israel. So for the people who's looking at Isaiah 60, whatever, to be fulfilled, when Basra, the Idumeans, was to be destroyed or to be sieged by those at Jerusalem, this is the accomplishment right here when Hyrcanus came in and he took control of the Idumean government and he converted them over from paganism to the God of Israel. So that's the fulfillment of that Isaiah a prophecy about the Lord coming in Basra with blood on his clothes. This is the fulfillment right here. So I don't know what you guys are looking for, but it's not going to happen. So now let's keep going. Herod made Costobarus governor of Idumea and Gaza, and gave him his sister Salome to wife, And this was upon the slaughter of his uncle Joseph, who had the government before, as we have related already. So we got uh, Herod coming in, getting the government through slaughter, right? Through war. So now we're going to go to line 266. And I went down to 4. And it starts with but. Let me find the but. But. Let's see here. 1 second. I gotta find it. Right here. Hold on. But, all right, right here. But when the king knew the thing by his sister's information, he sent men to the places where he had the intimidation they were concealed, and ordered both them and those that were accused of guilt as guilty with them to be slain, insomuch that there were now none at all left of the kindred of Hyrcanus, and the kingdom was entirely in Herod's own power, and there was nobody remaining of such dignity as could put a stop to what he did against the Jewish laws. So now he done killed an Israelite, he done got the kingdom, and now it said that Herod himself did some things against the Jewish laws. So we're going to go to chapter 8, section 1. We're going to read lines 266. Well, we already read. Oh, so we're going to read 267 through 268. Right here. It says, on this account, it was that Herod revolted from the laws of his country and corrupted their ancient constitution by the introduction of foreign practices, which constitution yet ought to have been preserved inviolably, inviolable, by which means we became guilty of great wickedness afterward, while those religious observances which used to lead the multitude to piety were now neglected. Let's see, we stop it by us. Okay. For in the first year, he appointed solemn gates to be celebrated every 5th year in honor of Caesar, and built a theater at Jerusalem, as also a great amphitheater in the plain. Both of them were indeed costly works, but opposite to the Jewish customs. For we have had no such shows delivered down to us as fit to be used or exhibited by us. So we got him now. He's creating things for Caesar, to honor Caesar. He's bringing in gyms, theaters and amphitheaters inside of Jerusalem. So that's the first thing Herod then did. And he done did this within the first year of his rule, right? So now we're going to go to 18. We're going to go to section 2. We're going to read lines 277. Let me find it right here. Nor was Herod unacquainted with the disturbances they were under. And as he thought it unseasonable to use violence with them, so he spake to some of them by way of consolation, in order to free them from that superstitious fear they were under. Yet could not he satisfy them, but they cried out with one accord, out of their great uneasiness at the offenses they thought he had been guilty of, that although they should think of bearing all the rest, yet would they never bear images of men in their city, meaning the trophies, because this was disagreeable to the laws of their countries. Now, when Herod saw them in such a disorder, and that they would not easily change their resolution until they received satisfaction, and then in this point, he called to him the most eminent men among them and brought them upon the theater and showed them the trophies and asked them what sort of things they took the trophies to be. And when they cried out that they were the images of men, sorry about that, uh, the images of man, he gave order that they should be stripped of these outward ornaments which were about them, and he showed them the naked pieces of wood, which pieces of wood, now without an ornament, became a matter of great sport and laughter to them, because they had before always had the ornaments of images themselves in derision. So he's trying to use them against their own self. You guys always had wood, so it's just gold on top of wood. It's just an image. You guys are under superstition. He's trying to change the laws of Jerusalem, the laws of Moses, by trying to show them or tell them that they was actually tripping, thinking the way that they was thinking, right? So now we go into section 3. So they was trying to revolt against him. He kind of stopped the revolt right there. So this is section 3. When therefore Herod had thus got clear of the multitude, and had dissipated the vehemency of passion under which they had been, the greatest part of the people were disposed to change their conduct, and not be displeased by him any longer. But still, some of them continued in their displeasure against him, for his introduction of new customs, and esteemed the violation of the laws of their country as likely to be the origin of very great mischiefs to them, so that they deemed it an instance of piety rather to hazard themselves to be put to death than to seem as if they took no notice of Herod, who, upon the change he made in their government, introduced such customs, and that in a violent manner, which they had never been used to before, as indeed in pretense a king, but in reality one that showed himself an enemy to their whole nation, on whose account 10 men that were citizens of Jerusalem conspired together against him, and swore to one another to undergo any dangers in the attempt, and took daggers with them under their garments for the purpose of killing Herod. So you see what's going on now? Now the Jews are conspiring against Herod. Some of the Jews listened to what he said and was persuaded by his language. But the other Jews, they was like, no, this is violating the law of Moses. This is violating our constitution. You're making yourself an enemy against God. And if we allow this to continue, God would turn his back on us and he will become our enemy. So 10 of the men said, hey, let's get together. We're going to kill this guy. All right. So this is so now we got Herod making himself an enemy of God, trying to bring in the Grecian customs inside of the land of Judea. So what is he doing now? Making himself an enemy of God. Now there was a certain blind man among the conspirators. I don't even know why you would have a blind man, but anyway, who had thus sworn to one another on account of the indignation he had against what he had heard to have been done, and he was not indeed able to afford the rest any assistance in the undertaking, but was ready to undergo any sufferings with them, if so be that they should come to any harm, insomuch that he became a great encourager of the rest of the undertakers. Right? So now, we're going to read 4. We're in section 4 now. And I know I'm doing a lot of reading, but I'm going through the history We only got three more emperors, and there's something else that I was wanting to show. Uh, so I'm gonna read 18 and 4, and I think what's that 288 to 289? 288. Let me find 288. For they showed no shame. Let me find it. Y'all know it's kind of hard when this PDF don't have the numbers, so I gotta find the words. So, all right, let me see here. Accordingly, all right, we got accordingly. Accordingly, he retired. The palaces. All right, so find the column everything. Add the prepared. Escape. I'm almost there, y'all. For they showed no shame. Proceed. All right, so we're gonna start right here then. Accordingly, he retired into his palace and called those that were accused of the conspiracy before him by their several names, and as upon the guards fallen upon them, they were caught in the very fact and knew that they could not escape. They prepared themselves for their ends with all the decency they could. So as not at all to recede from their resolute behavior, for they showed no shame for what they were about, nor denied it. But when they were seized, they showed their daggers and professed that the conspiracy they had sworn to was a holy and pious action. That what they intended to do was not for gain or out of any indulgence to their passions, but principally for those common customs of their country, which all the Jews were obliged to observe or to die for them. This was what these men said out of their undaunted courage in this conspiracy. So they were led away to execution. So they was led away to execution by the king's guards and stood about them, and patiently underwent all the torments inflicted upon them till they died. Nor was it any long before that spy who had discovered them was seized on by some of the people out of the hatred they bore to him, and was not only slain by them, but pulled to pieces, limb by limb from limb, and given to the dog. So, in other words, there was a spy amongst them. They found out about the plan. When it told Herod, Herod found the man that was conspiring against them. So the citizens found the spy and went and killed him themselves. So this execution was seen by many of the citizens, yet would not one of them discover the doers of it, till upon Herod making a strict scrutiny after them, by bitter and severe tortures, certain women that were tortured confessed what they had seen done. So he went through torturing people until he found out who was the conspirators, who was the ones that killed the spy. The authors of which fact was so terribly punished by the king that their entire families were destroyed for this their rash attempt. Yet did not the obstinacy of the people and that undaunted constancy they showed in the defense of their laws made Herod any easier to them. But he still strengthened himself after a more secure manner and resolved to encompass the multitude every way, lest such innovation should end in an open rebellion. So uh, Josephus saying that Herod, who was, he knew the law of the Jews, he was actually born under their customs and etc. He was supposed to be looking at okay, I understand why they're doing this because I'm doing all of this idolatry and stuff. But Josephus said Herod did not understand none of that. He didn't care about none of that. Herod was going around torturing people. He tortured the family of people. When one person was doing something, he'll go in and punish the family also. So now what is Herod doing? Making himself an enemy of Israel? Making himself an enemy of God. That's what he's doing real time. So once we get to let's see. Uh, I'm gonna skip around because I ain't gonna read the rest of it. We done seen what he done did. So let's get to uh the bread and butter. So when we get to book 17, right? Book 17, chapter 6. I'm gonna go to book 17, chapter 6. Hold on, let me find it. Herod was wilding out, but let's find out what else he was doing. So you go to book 17. I did it again, huh? All right, let's go to book 17. All right, chapter 6. Finally got there. And we're going to start at section 2. And let's just read. We're going to go through 149 to 1. Well, we might not get all the way to 150. Yeah, we're going to go to 152. There was one Judas, the son of Seraphius, and Matthias, the son of Margalathus, two of the most eloquent men among the Jews, and the most celebrated interpreters of the Jewish laws, to show you once again if the laws themselves were to be taken literal. Why did they have to have interpreters of the law? If don't eat shrimp is meant to be taken literal as don't eat shrimp, why did they have to have someone to come out and interpret don't eat shrimp? See, the point is the ancient Israelites understood, even though they did the carnal means of the law, they needed to know the true meaning, the true spiritual applications. Therefore, when they practiced the carnal means, they were implying they was partaking of the spiritual nature of the law. That's why. But anyway, and men well beloved by the people because of their education of their youth, for all of those that were studious of virtue frequented their lectures every day. So you see here that even the interpreters of the law did lectures. See, this is a lecture right now that we're doing right now. But even they did lectures. And it said they did them every day. There was people out there explaining and expounding the word of God every day in long lengths of matter. So now let's keep going. These men, when they found that the king's distemper was incurable, excited the young men that they would pull down all those works which the king had erected contrary to the law of their fathers, and thereby obtain the rewards which the law would confer on them for such actions of piety. For that it was truly on account of Herod's rashness in making such things as the law had forbidden. So you see, Herod keeps this violating the law. That his other misfortunes and this distemper also, which was so unusual among mankind, and with which he was now afflicted, came upon him. For Herod had caused such things to be made which were contrary to the law, on which he was accused by Judas and Matthias. For the king had erected over the great gate of the temple a large golden eagle of great value, and had dedicated it to the temple. Now the law forbids those that propose to live according to it to erect images or representations of any living creature. So these wise men persuaded their scholars to pull down the golden eagle alleging that although they should incur any damage which might bring them to their deaths, the virtue of the action now proposed to them would appear much more advantageous to them than the pleasure of life, since they would die for the preservation and observation of the law of their fathers, since they would also acquire an everlasting fame and commendation, since they would be both commended by the present generation and leave an example of life that would never be forgotten to posterity. See, that's the everlasting life right there. The everlasting life, uh, your name living on and on. Since that common calamity of dying cannot be avoided by our living, so as to escape any such dangers, that therefore it is a right thing for those who are in love with a virtuous conduct to wait for that fatal hour by such behavior as may carry them out of the world with praise and honor, and that this will alleviate death to a great degree, thus to come at it by the performance of brave actions, which bring us into danger of it, and at the same time to leave the reputation behind them to their children and to all their relations, whether they be men or women, which will be of great advantage to them afterwards. So, in other words, they was cool with just leaving a great reputation behind because they died for a good cause. All right, so now Herod put an eagle up above the temple. They said let's bring the eagle down, right? And let's go to this is section 3 now, right? And it says, and when they were come to the king, he asked them if they had been so bold to pull down what he had dedicated to God. Yes, they said, which was contrived, we contrived, and what had been performed, we performed it, and that which was such a virtuous courage as becomes men, for we had given our assistance to those things which were dedicated to the majesty of God, and we have provided for what we have learned by hearing the law. And it ought not to be wondered at if we esteem those laws which Moses had suggested to him and were taught him by God, and which he wrote and left behind him, more worthy of observation than thy commands. Notice, God taught Moses laws, not stories. So you can take the story of Adam and Eve, Noah, and all this stuff that don't have laws. God taught him laws, not stories. Moses added the stories and included the laws. See, more information that we learn here. Accordingly, we will undergo death and all sorts of punishments, which thou canst inflict upon us with pleasure, since we are conscious to ourselves that we shall die, not for any unrighteous actions, but for our love to religion. And thus they all said, and their courage was still equal to their profession, and equal to that which they were readily set about this undertaking. And when the king had ordered them to be bound, he sent them to Jericho, and called together the principal men among the Jews. And when they were come, he made them assemble in the theater. And because he could not himself stand, he lay upon the couch, and enumerated the many labors that he had long endured on their account in his building of the temple, and was a vast charge that was to them. While the Asmoneans, during the 125 years of their government, had not been able to perform any so great a work for the honor of God as that was, that he had also adorned it with very valuable donations, on which account he hoped that he had left himself a memorial and procured himself a reputation after death. So you see right there that they were all worried about having a reputation after death. So now let's keep going. He then cried out that these men, so once we're thinking about eternal life, think about how they viewed it in the first century or in the BC era, their point of everlasting life after death was a great reputation that continued about them even after they dead, even after they died. He then cried out that these men had not abstained from affronting him, even in his lifetime, but that in the very daytime and in the sight of the multitude, they had abused him to that degree as to fall upon which he had dedicated, and in that way of abuse had pulled it down to the ground. They pretended indeed that they did it to affront him, but if anyone considered the thing truly, they would find that they were guilty of sacrilege against God therein. But the people, on account of Herod's barbarous temper, and for fear he should be so cruel and to inflict punishment on them, said what was done without their approbation, and that it seemed to them that the actors might well be punished for what they had done. But as for Herod, he dealt more mildly with the others as of the assembly, but he deprived Matthias of the high priesthood, and in part on the occasion of this action, and made Joazar, who was Matthias's wife's brother, the high priest in his stead. Now it happened that during the time of the high priesthood of Matthias, there was another person made high priest for a single day, that very day which the Jews observed as a fast. The occasion was this, that this Matthias, high priest, on the night before that day when the fast was to be celebrated, seemed in a dream to have conversation with his wife, and because he could not officiate himself on that account, Joseph the son of Elamas, his kinsman, assisted him in the sacred office. But Herod deprived this Matthias of the high priesthood, and burnt the other Matthias, who had raised the sedition, with his companions alive. And that very night there was an eclipse of the moon. So now you got the eclipse of the moon coming in. You got the stars, the moon not giving off her light, and etc. Now we ask anybody who's a full preterist, what does it mean when the moon don't give off her light and the stars of heaven stop shining? You ask anyone that's a full preterist, they tell you that means judgment is coming. Once again, that eclipse means judgment is coming. So it could be used allegorical for judgment. And here we're going to see that it actually meant judgment. Because that very night that Herod burned the people who wanted to conspire against him for going against the laws of Moses, which was the laws of God, that same night that he killed them, there was an eclipse in the sky. So now let's find out what happened. Section 5. But now Herod's distemper greatly increased upon him after a severe manner, and this by God's judgment upon him for his sins. For a fire glowed in him slowly, which did not so much appear in the touch outwardly, as it augmented his pains inwardly. For it brought upon him a vehement appetite to eating, which he could not avoid to supply with one sort of food or other. His entrails were also ulcerated, and the chief violence of his pain lay on his colon, and aqueous and transparent liquor also had settled itself about his feet, and a like matter afflicted him at the bottom of his belly. Nay, further, his privy members were petrified and produced worms. And when he sat upright, he had a difficulty of breathing, which was very loathsome on account of the stench of his breath and the quickness of its returns. He had also convulsions in all parts of his body, which increased his strength in an insufferable degree. It was said by those who pretended to divine and who were endued with wisdom to foretell such things, that God inflicted this punishment on the king on account of his great impiety, yet was he still in hopes of recovering, though his affliction seemed greater than that anyone could bear. He also sent for physicians and did not refuse to follow what they prescribed for his assistance, and went beyond the river Jordan and bathed himself in the warm baths that were in Calaraho, which besides their other general virtues, which also fit to drink, which waters run into the lake of asphalteris, asphalteris, whatever. And when the physician once thought fit to have him bathed in a vessel full of oil, it was supposed that he was just dying. But upon the lamentable cries of his domestics, he revived, and having no longer the least hopes of recovery, he he gave order that every soldier should be paid 50 drachmae. Let me see here. All right, let's keep reading. It's something that I was want to read also about this. It says it was supposed that hold on. He also gave a great deal to their commanders and to his friends, and came again to Jericho, which he grew so choleric that it brought him to do all things like a madman. And though he was near his death, he contrived the following wicked designs. He commanded that all the principal men of the entire Jewish nation, wheresoever they lived, should be called to him. Accordingly, they were a great number that came, because the nation was called, and all men heard of this call. And death was the penalty of such as should despise the epistles that were sent to call them. And now the king was in a wild rage against them all, and the innocent, as well as those that had afforded ground for accusations. And when they were come, he ordered them to be shut up in the hippodrome, and sent for his sister Salome, and her husband Alexis, and spake thus to them: I shall die in a little time. So great are my pains. All right. Which death ought to be cheerfully borne, and to be welcomed by all men. But what principally troubles me is this, that I shall die without being lamented, and without such mourning as men usually expect at a king's death. For that he was not unacquainted with the temper of the Jews, that his death would be a thing very desirable and exceedingly acceptable to them, because during his lifetime they were ready to revolt from him, and to abuse the donations he had dedicated to God, that it therefore was their business to resolve to afford such alleviations of his great sorrows for this occasion. For that if they do not refuse him their consent in what he desires, he should have a great mourning at his funeral, and such as never had any king before him. For then the whole nation would mourn from their very soul, which otherwise would be done in sport and mockery only. He desired therefore that as soon as they see he had given up the ghost, he shall place soldiers around the hippodrome, while they do not know he is dead. And they shall not declare his death to the multitude till this is done. And that they should give order to those to have those that are in custody shot with darts, and that this slaughter of them all will cause that he shall not miss to rejoice on a double account, that as he is dying, they will make him secure that his will shall be executed in what he charges them to do, and that he shall have honor of a memorable mourning at his funeral. So he deplored his condition with tears in his eyes, And I've tested them with the kindness due to them as of kindred, and by the faith they owe to God, and begged of them that they would not hinder him of this honorable mourning at his funeral. So they promised him not to transgress his commands, which they did not do. So when Herod died, let's see here. Not any one man easily discovered the temper of this man's mind, which not only took pleasure in doing what he had done formerly against his relations out of the love of life, but by those commands of which he savored of no humanity, since he took care when he was departing out of this life that the whole nation should be put into mourning, and indeed made desolate of their dearest kindred, when he had gave order that one out of every family should be slain, although they had done nothing that was unjust or that was against him, or nor they was accused of any crimes, other crimes. While it is usual for those who have regard to virtue to lay aside their hatred at such a time, even with respect to those they justly esteem their enemies. In other words, he said they're not going to die. They're not going to cry when I die. So I want a great mourning. So I want you to take all of the men uh, uh, of Israel that's considered elders and of valor and etc. Put them in this hyperdome, and as soon as I die, I want you to kill every one of them. And then there will be a great mourning in Jerusalem. Even if they're not mourning for me, at least there will be a great mourning. But out of out of the things that was going on with Herod, they actually did not do that. From my recall, they definitely didn't do that, and Herod died in pain and torture and etc. So, sorry about all of that for Herod, right? Now, um, I'm going to end it with that one, right? That's going to be my part one. I'm going to come in Sunday and I'm going to do part two. And then that would be all of the things dealing with fighting Christ, fighting against the enemies of Israel and the enemies of the Lord Himself. Joseph, did you want to add anything? I know it was long, and thank you for staying in. Did you want to add anything? You got to talk up, brother. For some reason, your phone real low. Still low, but I just repeat what you say. He said we as a people got to stop making stuff up. And we as a people got to stop following individuals that come up with stuff out of thin air just because they think it's right. All right, we got to follow the history of the people that we're following the history of, and pretty much stick it to that and let it stay with that, and quit following people that's making stuff up, or quit trying to make it make sense ourselves. Continue to look at the history, and the history will provide. I paraphrased. Okay, and only then will we understand what's going on culturally for the Hebrews at that day and time. I've been doing it too, my brother. And he said he loved everyone and continue to follow RPK dash Resurrection Prophecy and Kingdom found on YouTube as well as Facebook. Also, be sure to follow my YouTube channel AOSD-Chandler. It stands for Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. You can also follow. Yes, sir. Also follow SF Wisdom, SF Wisdom, and All Things Fulfilled. Uh, then you have TikTok, and I think it's let me find it because uh, if you have TikTok, follow my brother on TikTok. His TikTok name is it right here? His TikTok name is Batson Better Life. BATSON BETTERLIFE. Batson Better Life. Follow him on TikTok. And this is part one. Part two will be coming shortly. Say it again. Oh yeah, in the website, thefirstchurch.live. Also, we have articles at the website, thefirstchurch.live. THEFIRSTCHURCH.LIVE. And I think that will be it. Once again, I was going to finish, but y'all been on here about 2 hours, and it's good to go with another part too. But what I'm showing, the point was, a lot of people was like, "Hey, when is he going to fight against all of these nations? When is all of this stuff going to happen?" We can clearly see in the history of the Jews that the Most High always fought against the nations, always fought against the people that came against his laws and his people. Always. So now, we're actually gonna we got like one more dealing with the Jews. And then in part two, after we're done with that one more dealing with the Jews, we're here to tell you that the new people of Christ, the new people of the Most High, the Father, became Christ's people, who they call the Christians. And if you don't believe me, we're going to see now if by default was any people that came against the Christians, were they destroyed? So first we got all of the history of the people that came against the Israelites and them being destroyed. You got the king of Assyria came against the northern kingdom. Eventually, he was destroyed. You had Nebuchadnezzar and his descendants came against the southern kingdom. Eventually, they was destroyed. You got the Greeks. The Medo Persians when they was coming against some of Israel before they was let go. Eventually, they was destroyed. Then you got the Greeks that came against Israel, and we just already done went through that. Eventually, they were destroyed. And then you had some of the Romans that came against Israel and the God of Israel. Eventually, they were destroyed. But then in the same moment, you had others that came against the quote unquote Christians. And we're going to see what happened to them in part two. So this whole the Lord fighting against the nations that's coming against someone, maybe you don't know what that meant. Just maybe you don't understand who this nation truly came against and what happened to those nations that came against these people. We're going to find out in part two. So thank everyone for listening in. Once again, this is Elvin Israel from the Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. This is the YouTube right here. This is the other YouTube right here. This is the other YouTube right here. This is the other YouTube right here. Let's see if it pop up. Right here. This is the other YouTube right here. So, that's all the YouTubes right there. Now, thank you guys for listening in. Stay in shalom. And until next time, let's get ready to end this bad boy.
Thank you for clicking on the channel.
AOSD.
Similar Sound Doctrine Chandler.
Similar Sound Doctrine.
AOSD, RPK, Resurrection Mafia Kingdom. Like, subscribe, share. Let's go.
Come get a lesson. I'm teaching blessings. No need for guessing. I'm knowledge testing. It's truth time. The wise will shine. And the wicked will pine. I'm a righteous kind. Straight out of trouble, I'm keeping it subtle. Just me and my brothers and sisters. They left us, we fixing the puzzle, no stressing. Our cousins, the bunker, the struggle with aunties and cuz. Wanna read it, believe it. They should be back. See it and need it like a kid back. Bridges and pieces like a Kit Kat, Akis and I get seasoned. It's a Hollywood, not Dollywood. Album love, the kingdom within. AOSD is finessing. RPK, let your journey begin. It's a Hollywood, not Dollywood. Album love, the kingdom within. AOSD is finessing. RPK, let your journey begin. AOSD, 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 Assembly Sound Doctrine.